He fell in love with the empress of the empire and abducted her, taking her as his own, only because she was about to die. The emperor who once vowed to spend his life with her betrayed that promise and took another woman as his bride. The maid who had grown up with her like a sister was carrying her husband's child. Her natal family, who had fought and sacrificed for the empire's stability, was falsely accused of treason and executed to the last. Betrayal after betrayal turned Maria's hair white overnight. Yet even a rusted blade can gleam again. She swore that when she returned their blood would spill for 10 meters, and they would all accompany her to the grave. A year ago, Emperor Henry welcomed his mistress into the palace, a noblewoman from the Landers kingdom named Lauren Sarah. For 10 years she had failed to bear an heir, and ever since Lauren became pregnant, the pressure upon the former empress had only grown harsher. The emperor wished to grant his mistress the title of chief administrator, but when the chancellor opposed it, he turned his pressure upon the empress. Why not have Her Majesty send her a gift instead? Of course, it should be in the name of the former empress, someone suggested. 2 high-grade magic stones would be fitting. But remember, this will be the last time, she replied coldly. The former empress's funds are long depleted. These magic stones come from my mother's house, the Stewarts, so I will handle it myself. But the next time my father asks where that money went, she said coolly, I'll have no choice but to tell him the truth, that it was a gift for one of the former empress's countless lovers. Now if you'll excuse me. From inside the room came Monica's furious yet helpless scream, but Maria had no time left for anger. While they idled away their days in pleasure and indulgence, she was left to clean up the wreckage they left behind, day after day. Before the citizens of the empire, she held her head high, unshaken by storm or scorn, because she was the Empress of Lastonia, and that alone was why she still sat upon this throne. When the emperor's mistress, Lauren, went into labor, Maria arrived at the scene. Emperor Henry's face grew tense. He had not expected the empress herself to appear. The former empress, meanwhile, showed not the slightest trace of warmth. Gasping softly, Lauren whispered, Your Majesty, I will give birth to your child. Henry, eyes full of tenderness, replied, You are all that matters to me. And no matter what happens, please, be safe. Pretending to be moved, Monica dabbed at her eyes. Our emperor is so devoted and loving, isn't he? Maria ignored her, but the woman pressed on viciously. Don't you feel even a bit ashamed, Your Majesty? A barren woman who can't bear the emperor's child. How had it come to this? Why must she still endure such condemnation? The royal physicians had long confirmed she was not infertile, yet even knowing the truth, none dared speak in her defense. Suddenly, a joyous cry cut through the argument. Your Majesty, the prince has been born. Maria stood frozen, unable to believe the sound of the newborn's cry. A few nobles immediately warned the royal physician to mind his words. A concubine's bastard child dares to be called a prince. The empress herself is present. Henry roared, Silence. Then he rose to his feet and walked straight toward the empress. Once he had told Maria gently, I love you. No other woman will ever hold the title of empress in my plans for the future. Now with that same face twisted in disgust, he sneered, Maria, I want a divorce. Her mind went blank as if struck by a hammer. Divorce? What a joke. When she refused, Henry repeated coldly, Even if you're not barren, it doesn't matter. To me, there's nothing I need besides the child Lauren has given me. Lauren spoke softly, tears shimmering in her eyes. Henry and I share true love. So please, Your Majesty, let us be together. The former empress scoffed. You're a hopeless lunatic. The royal family's only heir could become a bastard, and all you care about is protecting your family's power. A year ago, Lauren Sarah, niece of the former Empress Monica, had arrived under the guise of a diplomatic envoy. That so-called visit was nothing but a plot long in the making. If you wish to name that child a prince, do as you please. But divorce, never. Henry's face twisted with rage. I am the Emperor of Lastonia. Do you think I can't dismiss a mere empress? One restless night, Maria left her chambers. Standing in the corridor, the gentle grace she once carried had hardened into defiance. Her brows arched sharply, filled with disgust and fury. Her maid Nancy hurried after her, anxious. It's so late, Your Majesty. Why did you leave without a word? The things you requested are ready. Maria tied her long hair back and said quietly, Henry's spies are watching me. Tonight his soldiers will break in. You're not really planning to defy His Majesty, are you? Nancy asked, trembling. Maria tightened her grip on the sword in her hand. It's time to end this. Lauren's child was born a month ago, and since that day conflict over his lineage has never ceased. And now it was time to bring it all to an end. As children, whenever they shared secrets, they would settle things through bets, each bound to obey the winner unconditionally. Henry had never once beaten her. I know what you're afraid of, Maria whispered. If we fail, neither of us will escape unscathed, and yet you still choose to stay by my side. I'm deeply grateful. From that day on, Nancy had never left her side. By the way, Maria asked softly, what about the contact with my father? Nancy hesitated before replying, it's all been arranged. Maria had long foreseen that Henry would meddle with her family's power, so she had warned her parents to be ready to flee at any moment. If she failed to convince Henry tonight, not only she herself but everyone she loved would be in danger. Just as she expected, the Imperial Guards were already marching toward the Empress's quarters. Maria gripped her sword tightly. Let's go. When Henry arrived and saw Maria standing there unflinching, he frowned. Why didn't you run? Why are you waiting here for me, Maria? She answered calmly, I ask only that you spare everyone in the Empress's palace. Grant me a duel. If I win, then for once listen to my request. Henry laughed coldly. And why should I agree? Don't tell me you've forgotten. You haven't touched a sword in 10 years. Maria lifted her gaze and met his eyes. Then come, Henry. Since childhood she had studied every art expected of a noble, including swordsmanship. With her natural talent she even passed the knight's entrance exam. But in the end she was forced to abandon that path, by the Emperor himself. Seeing her still radiate that same commanding aura, Henry's rage flared. That's what I hate about you, whatever I do, you always outshine me. No, far worse than that. Do you even know what obedience means? He sneered. Your father, he's guilty of treason. Maria froze, her bright eyes going blank in shock. Taking advantage of her hesitation, the man lunged forward, shouting, James Stewart has conspired to assassinate me. Maria's sword flew from her grasp. A lie so absurd, yet it struck her to the core, leaving her completely exposed. The Emperor barked coldly, take the traitor away. Meanwhile, in the Chancellor's estate an army stood ready. My apologies, Your Majesty, someone murmured. The man stared into the raging flames, his face darkening to iron, his eyes filled with fury and bloodlust. Inside the grand hall, countless nobles had gathered. In the very center, Maria knelt, her body bound in chains, bruised and broken. Except for Nancy and a handful of surviving attendants, everyone in the Empress's palace was dead. Maria could hardly believe it. Such innocent lives slaughtered so easily. Emperor Henry sat high upon the judgment dais, his voice cold as iron. Your father, James Stewart, has committed treason, and you conspired with him to harm your emperor. Do you confess? Fury burned in Maria's chest. Her father had accepted the position of chancellor only at Henry's request. A man that loyal could never have plotted rebellion. Henry sneered and held up a letter. This proves everything. Overthrow the incompetent emperor and crown my daughter Maria as empress. The handwriting matches the chancellor's exactly. Still planning to deny it even in the face of such proof? Henry pressed. Monica chimed in mockingly, her tone dripping with venom. James must have been greedy beyond measure, trying to make his daughter a puppet empress so he could rule from the shadows. Nearby, Lauren gently cradled the infant in her arms. William, are you hungry? Come now, have some milk. Maria's voice turned icy. Ridiculous. You condemn treason over a single letter. There's no Stewart family seal on it. How can you claim it's authentic? Her words rattled the court and Henry slammed the table in rage. You dare lecture me at a time like this? Maybe when you share your father's fate you'll finally learn to keep quiet. Maria steadied her breath, her tone calm yet cutting. The emperor I see before me has long since rotted. When your majesty wasted nights gambling and drinking with vipers, it was I who kept the empire from falling apart. And when the former empress brought shame upon the crown with her lovers, it was my father who risked everything to preserve your dignity. Yet this is how you repay us. Her words sent ripples through the court. Nobles began to exchange uneasy glances and order within the hall faltered. Monica, enraged, stepped forward and struck Maria across the face. You lunatic! So the traitor finally shows her true colors. You slander us because you want me gone, so you can sit on the throne yourself, is that it? Henry stopped his mother with a cold gesture. Mother, rest at there's no need to stain those delicate hands. Archbishop begin. From this moment forth, the Asternia Empire severs all ties with the papal state and will establish its own faith for the people of the empire. Furthermore, the Stewart family, accused of attempting to assassinate His Majesty, shall be executed to the last. Bring them in, Henry commanded sharply. For the crime of treason, Duke James Stewart and all his retainers are to be executed immediately. Maria stared blankly at the charred remains beside her. What was left of her father. On the corpse, she could still see the earring she had once given him. Her composure shattered. Henry, she screamed, voice breaking. You burned my home, my family. The man raised his sword high, then brought it down mercilessly. In a flash of steel, the body was severed in two. Maria's pupils dilated. She tried to cry out, but no sound escaped her lips. Then from the depths of her throat came a scream so raw and violent it tore through the air, a howl of rage, pain, and defiance that echoed through the silent throne hall. The gathered nobles immediately shifted their allegiance, bowing and murmuring empty words of loyalty. But before the hall could quiet, a terrified shout came from outside. Your Majesty, the Red Army is storming the palace. Heavy footsteps drew closer and closer, the grand doors creaked open, and a suffocating aura of bloodlust swept through the chamber. A towering man with crimson hair strode inside, clad in blood-red armor. Like a war god risen from a sea of corpses, his long scarlet hair flowed behind him, his face hidden beneath a dragon-shaped mask the color of blood. The Emperor of Highland, Henry himself, staggered back in terror. Nancy rushed to Maria's side, sobbing uncontrollably. Your Majesty, please wake up. I beg you, open your eyes. Suddenly, the hall was filled with light. The red-haired war god knelt before the fallen empress, his gaze soft as he looked upon the shattered woman. In a voice deep and gentle, he whispered, Maria. The kingdom of Highland was a nation forged by mercenaries scattered across the continent. The great royal houses, they were nothing but savages, unworthy of respect. Yet beneath those desolate northern lands lay vast veins of high-grade magic stones and gold. Now nearly every kingdom owed Highland a debt, including Lastonia itself. And when payment was late, the Red Legion of Highland came to collect. But this time their king had come in person, and shockingly he stood beside the dethroned empress. The man extended a hand toward her, then froze midway. Moments later he clenched his fist and rose abruptly, striding toward the emperor. Henry dared not meet his gaze. Why, Your Majesty, you came yourself. I was just about to send word to you. The red-haired man's tone was calm yet menacing. Tomorrow marks your final day to repay the debt. You haven't forgotten, have you? Cornered, Henry's face turned pale. Everyone knew, the Red Legion would stop at nothing when collecting a debt. Do you wish for an extension? The man asked coldly. Henry's eyes lit with sudden hope. Yes. Half a month, anything will do. In the next instant the man's sword swung toward Monica. Then tell me, how much is this woman worth? A flash of steel split the air, slicing a neat line through her ornate fan. The former empress froze, trembling in terror. Insolent cur! Henry roared. That is my mother you threaten. The red-haired man seized Henry by the collar and lifted him clean off the ground, his voice colder than steel. Do you think I'm joking? Repay 10 million gold. Now daughter, bring me something to cover the debt. Henry gasped for air, his face turning crimson as he struggled. Please. Just give me a little more time. His desperate eyes drifted toward the fallen, broken figure of the former empress. I love you, Maria, Henry murmured softly, his tone almost wistful. I swear before all the gods, as your husband, I'll spend the rest of my life loving and protecting you. Back then Maria had smiled, gently taking his hand. And I will do my best, as your empress, as your wife, to stand by your side. A cruel chuckle echoed. Heh. In the next instant the chancellor's estate behind them burst into flames. Henry's voice rang through the inferno. Maria, you never learn, do you? Surrounded by fire and blood, Maria trembled with rage. That vile monster. He's not even human. I should have killed him when I had the chance. She awoke from unconsciousness to the sound of shouting. Nancy rushed to her side, her voice shaking. Your Majesty, You're awake, thank the stars. Monica's shrill voice cut through the air. Tell me the truth. Do you know the Emperor of Highland? Otherwise, why would he defend you like that? What are we supposed to do about the debt? Even now, they expected Maria to save them once again, to come up with some perfect solution. Monica's tone softened, almost coaxing. Be a good girl. Think of something, won't you? Henry spoke coldly. Maria, negotiate with Jinx. If you can convince him to show mercy, perhaps I'll spare your life. Speak up. Say something, Maria. But she remained silent. The former empress grew increasingly irate, her voice rising to a shriek. What's the matter? Lost your tongue. You've truly become nothing but a useless shell. Meanwhile, the god of slaughter, having finished his grim work, stepped into the bath. Steam rose thickly through the air, yet it could not dispel the cold aura clinging to his body. His tall frame sank into the water. The crimson armor was gone, but the scent of blood still clung to him, impossible to wash away. Henry stormed out, slamming the table in fury. Damn it! I thought Maria could persuade the King of Highland through diplomacy, but she's gone mute. They'll come to collect at dawn. What now? His mistress, Lauren, stepped forward eagerly. Your Majesty, let me go. Men like beautiful women, don't they? For you I'll do anything. Henry smirked, brushing his fingers along her cheek. Yes. Who could resist someone like you? Go then, I trust your way of negotiation. With confident, swaying steps, Lauren made her way to the Highland King's quarters. Too easy, she thought smugly. A little smile, a bit of charm, and the guards will let me in. The King of Highland, will he be just like every other man? She whispered to herself, until she sensed someone approaching. Before her eyes appeared a face of breathtaking beauty. Lauren froze, stunned. The emperor, who was said to wear a mask to hide his disfigurement, was, in truth, the most handsome man she had ever seen. She raised her voice, smiling sweetly. I'm Lauren, sir, your Majesty. I've brought you wine. The king turned away without emotion. I don't drink. Leave if you have nothing else. Growing desperate, Lauren snatched up the wine bottle and took a deep gulp. Putting on a pitiful act, she pleaded tearfully, Please, your Majesty, give us just 1 year. I beg you, in a year we can repay everything. The King of Highland frowned, cutting her off sharply. That smell on you, it's choking me. Lauren froze, confused. Smell? But I used plenty of perfume before coming here. The smell of milk, the king said with disdain, his tone like ice. You'd better go back and feed your child. Oh, wait. Not now. You just drank wine, didn't you? You should know that'll make your baby stupid. Lauren's face flushed crimson with humiliation. Burning with shame and rage, she fled the room in tears. Inside the Empress's chamber, no matter what her maid Nancy said, Maria remained silent, her head bowed. It wasn't until Nancy brought out a quill, an heirloom from her grandfather, Pope Liberio, a holy pen that needed no ink and could make anything it touched eternal, that Maria finally looked up. Maria gazed at the pen in silence. Her eyes held only boundless sorrow and fury that refused to fade. Suddenly the door burst open. The King of Highland strode in, his steps heavy and sure. He knelt before Maria, slowly removing the crimson mask from his face. His voice was deep and tender. Maria, I've come to take you away. It's been 10 years. I've missed you so much. Maria stared blankly at the face she thought she'd never see again. Bronzed skin, red hair, that familiar countenance etched into her memory. Nancy gasped in disbelief. Or, the slave from back then, Gunter Place. That name, Her Majesty was the one who gave it to you. The king ignored her, leaning down to scoop Maria into his arms. Come back to Highland with me. Holding the fragile, trembling Maria close, he walked out of the Empress's palace, asking softly, Maria, are you in pain? I know this is sudden, he murmured, his tone laced with regret, but I can't let you stay in this damned place any longer. Nancy followed behind, her voice breaking. Your Majesty, the Empress seems too shaken to speak. The king hesitated briefly, his stride faltering for just a moment. Then he tightened his embrace, resolve hardening in his eyes, and strode forward with unwavering determination, vowing to take her far away from this living hell. Outside the hall, Emperor Henry stormed in with his guards, shouting furiously, King of Highland, what is the meaning of this? You dare trespass into my palace. Why are you taking Maria? She's a condemned criminal awaiting execution. The Highland King's voice was calm but heavy with menace. Then tell me, Emperor, Will you take her place as my hostage? Henry froze, shock flickering across his face. A hostage? He wants to take Maria. So in his eyes, that useless woman actually had value? The king's patience wore thin, his tone dropped to ice. Enough talk. Choose. Either you come with me or you hand over Maria Stewart as my hostage. A glint of calculation flashed in Henry's eyes. So easy, he forced a thin smile. Words mean nothing. I'll need a written agreement. The king's expression hardened. My word is the agreement. Henry's face stiffened. Then, how long will you extend the debt? A year? He asked, already thinking to himself. 1 year's fine. The woman's charming but hardly a rare beauty. I'll repay him before then. The contract stands, the Highland king declared flatly. He turned, tightening his hold on Maria, and started to leave. But Maria raised a trembling hand, motioning for him to put her down. She stepped toward her maid, whispering softly, Nancy. Gunter understood at once. She wants you to come, he said gently. Nancy, come with us. Nancy slowly let go of Maria's hand. Tears welled in her eyes as she choked out, Your Majesty, I can't go. I'm pregnant. Maria's breath caught. Whose child? You've been by my side every day. If you had someone you loved, I would have known. Henry's lips curled into a cruel smirk. Sliding an arm around Nancy's shoulders, he said mockingly, Maria, Nancy is carrying my child. Nancy fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, truly sorry, Your Majesty. Please forgive me. Love is what it is. My only crime was falling in love. The one who helped drive my parents to their deaths was you. The thought shattered Maria completely. It was a fatal blow that plunged her into utter despair. In that moment, her golden hair turned pale, like strands of frost beneath winter moonlight. Nancy reached out in panic, but the King of Highland flung her aside with a furious motion. Don't touch her, he growled, wrapping his arms protectively around Maria. We're leaving. But Maria gently pushed him away and stepped forward toward Henry, her face expressionless. She reached out and grasped his hand. Then, taking the quill her grandfather, the Pope Liberio, had once given her, the one whose inkless script could never fade, she slowly wrote in his palm, Judgment upon the tyrant devoid of all virtue. Henry's expression twisted in fear the moment he recognized the pen, and when he looked down to read the words carved into his skin, his fear turned to rage. You lunatic, he roared. Maria's eyes were cold as steel. I will never forgive you, Henry. I will kill you myself. The King of Highland's gaze darkened, his tone like frost. Tell me, Emperor, do you have another hostage to offer? No. Then I'll consider this settled. In 1 year I'll return. He gathered Maria into his arms and turned away as they left the burning palace. Maria glanced back one last time, the fire of vengeance already blazing in her eyes. Inside the carriage, Maria frowned slightly, studying the man across from her. His gaze had not left her even once. Why is the King of Highland so fixated on me? She wondered. Is it because I'm worth 10 million gold as his hostage? Yet there was something else in his eyes, something warm and painfully familiar. Her breath caught. No. Could it be, we've met before? Outside the carriage came the sharp crack of thrown objects, mixed with angry shouts. Traitor, usurper, Maria Stewart. Her body went rigid as she trembled and lifted the curtain. The sight froze her blood. The citizens of Lastonia surged like a raging tide around the carriage, their hatred crashing against her ears in deafening waves. Kill the vain, wasteful queen. Criminal Maria, get out and repent. She dared borrow from barbarians and couldn't repay. Serves her right to be taken away. Vain witch, you've met divine punishment. A tomato flew through the air, bursting against the window. The red pulp smeared across the glass like blood. Maria stared out, terrified and helpless, her body trembling. The King of Highland drew close, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Don't be afraid, he murmured. They're lies, nothing more than slander. Don't let it trouble you. Lies, she whispered. Her thoughts drifted back to years spent walking on eggshells in the palace, studying tirelessly, terrified she wasn't good enough to fulfill her duty as empress. Even when Henry called her presumptuous, even when the former empress resented her for taking her son's heart, even when all her accomplishments were credited to Henry, she never complained. I gave my entire life to Lastonia, not for myself but for the empire, and this is my reward. This is how they repay me? The curses outside rose again, crashing like waves. Erase the Stewart line. The fallen empress still lives. Maria felt as though unseen hands were dragging her into the abyss. No, it's not true, none of it is, she whispered, trembling. As the carriage rolled beyond the city gates, exhaustion overtook her. She drifted into a deep sleep. The King of Highland glanced down at her peaceful face, a faint crease forming on his brow. Just moments ago she was terrified, and now she's asleep? A soldier approached and reported, "Your Majesty, the mountain road ahead is too rough. Once the sun sets, we won't be able to move safely. Shall we make camp here?" The King of Highland glanced toward Maria again and ordered in a low voice, "We camp here. Keep the men quiet, no noise." Late that night, Maria awoke, confused and disoriented, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar surroundings. Suddenly she shuddered, catching sight of her reflection in the carriage window. Her once golden hair had turned a stark, silvery white. "Dear God," she whispered, "is this what you wanted to see?" In her daze she heard a soft, distant voice, her mother's. "Maria, my precious child, come to me." Lost in the illusion, Maria threw open the door and bolted into the night. "Mother, take me away. Please take me away from here." "Stop!" The King of Highland's voice roared through the darkness. But Maria only cried out, "Don't follow me. My mother is waiting." The king's heart seized in terror when he saw what lay ahead. A sheer cliff. Maria stood right at its edge. Her voice trembled, empty and broken. "Why am I still alive? Everyone I loved died because of me. The man I once loved abandoned me. That there's nothing left here, nothing worth staying for." She closed her eyes and stepped into the void. "Maria!" The king lunged forward, catching her just as she fell. With one arm he heaved her upward, the other clinging to the cliff's jagged edge. His knuckles split and bled, gripping the rock with desperate strength. Maria stared at him in disbelief. This man had leapt after her without hesitation. The king said nothing, jaw clenched, muscles straining as he hauled them both upward. When they finally reached solid ground, he set her down, trembling and drenched in sweat. His voice cracked with fury and fear, eyes glistening with tears. "Who gave you permission to throw your life away? You're not allowed to die. Do you hear me? Never." His chest heaved as he shouted, his anger trembling between heartbreak and desperation. "How could you jump without a second thought? Like you wanted to abandon me completely? How could you even think of dying?" He gripped Maria's hand tightly, his fingers white and shaking, terrified that if he let go for even a moment, she would vanish from his world forever. Maria froze for a moment, then struggled in pain. "Who are you to stop me? Why are you holding me back?" she cried. Hysterical, she screamed, "What do we even have to do with each other? By what right do you drag me back to this world?" Her emotions shattered completely. The King of Highland tried to soothe her, but Maria was on the verge of collapse, her condition urgent. He snatched a sedative from a retainer and swallowed it in one gulp. Immediately he pulled her into his arms and forced the medicine into her mouth. Maria tried to break free, but he gripped her wrist so tightly she could not retreat. Gradually the sedative took effect. She calmed and drifted into a heavy sleep. The king's affection showed a near-obsessive intensity as he held the woman he had reclaimed. "For 10 years I lived in hell to win you. This time I will never lose you again," he thought. His officers arrived in a panic. The king's expression darkened as he ordered a change of course. "Head directly to Highland's mining stronghold." Back in the Lastonian palace, Lauren paced in heels, her voice a sharp purr as she accused Henry. "Who was that woman? Is she your mistress? You've broken my heart." Lauren barked an order at the maid Nancy. "Isn't she the former empress's servant? Throw her out, now." She leaned close and hissed, "Before I crush your belly with my heel, get out of the palace." No sooner had the words left her mouth than Lauren slammed her heel down hard onto Nancy's foot. Nancy endured the pain in silence, terror-stricken. Could that once innocent face truly be so cruel? Henry soothed softly. "Lauren, Nancy played a big part in bringing Maria down. She betrayed her mistress for it." He added with a cold smile, "If I banish her now, what would that make me?" The former empress chimed in sweetly. "That's right, Lauren, without that woman, you'd never have had the chance to become the next empress. Be generous. Indulge His Majesty this once." Though guilt toward Maria lingered in Nancy's heart, it was far outweighed by her twisted love for Henry. That love had silenced her conscience the very first time she betrayed her mistress. As long as Henry accepts me, she thought, it doesn't matter if I can never go back to the way things were. Besides, I'll never see Maria again anyway. At the Highland mining camp, the heavy clang of the bell echoed through the mountains. The adjutant, Sashar, announced a new round of reassignments, sparking murmurs among the workers. We were just grouped. Why change it again? When he read the name Maria, whispers rippled through the crowd. Maria? Who's that? She looks like a noblewoman. Sashar's expression turned stern. In this place, everyone is equal to no one gets special treatment. Any troublemakers will be punished severely, traitors will be exiled, remember that. He continued, his voice echoing over the assembly. Work hard in the Highland mines, your pay depends on your effort. The more you give, the more you earn. The crowd roared in response, long live Highland. Days later, her teammates began to notice something off about Maria. Her eyes were vacant, her face expressionless. She moved like a marionette with its strings barely holding. Someone whispered, the sudden regrouping. Could it be because of her? I heard the king himself brought her here, maybe they're involved? If she's really a noble, why is she toiling here like the rest of us? Shouldn't she be in the palace? A noble, muttered Laura under her breath. Her expression twisted with disgust as she turned away, unwilling to look at Maria for even a second longer. Inside the royal office, the adjutant Sashar asked in confusion, Your Majesty, why did you send Lady Maria to work in the mines? His tone carried concern as he continued, Not only have you left her unattended, but you've assigned her to a group of troublemakers. I fear Lady Maria won't be able to withstand such harsh conditions. The King of Highland spoke calmly, though there was a strange weight in his voice. It's precisely because she can't endure it that I sent her there. Sashar froze, staring in disbelief, unable to grasp his ruler's intent. Just then the door creaked open and a cheerful young voice called out, Gunter, you're back. The visitor was none other than the elven boy of Highland, Ston. The king lifted his gaze, his brow tightening slightly as he said in a low tone, Ston, what are you doing here? Sashar quickly interjected, bowing his head. Forgive me, Your Majesty. Lord Ston insisted on seeing you, I couldn't stop him. Ston only smiled, eyes glimmering with mischief. Don't blame Sashar that I came here of my own accord. Gunter fell silent for a moment, then rose to his feet, his tone cold and deliberate. Very well, that I have something to ask you anyway. Let's speak alone. His gaze darkened. Not long ago I went to Lastonia as promised, to bring Maria back. But when I arrived, the Stewart family had already been slaughtered by Count Selatu's mercenaries. They burned everything to the ground. That count belonged to the family of the emperor's mistress. His voice grew heavy with restrained anger. If I had arrived sooner, things might have been different. You, of all beings, should have known. Stondat is an earth spirit who can manipulate time. Why didn't you warn me? Ston remained calm, his tone unshaken. I've told you before, haven't I? To alter a destined path is nearly impossible. Even if you escape fate once, it will always find another way to return. Damn it, damn fate. Gunter snarled through clenched teeth. Ston's voice softened. Don't hate fate too much, Gunter. After all, wasn't it fate that brought us together? Gunter said nothing for a long while, his expression shadowed. I know. 10 years ago their destinies first crossed. Back then Gunter was far from the mighty king he had become. While exploring the desolate northern wastelands of Highland, he stumbled upon a newborn infant. Proof that even in a land of death, life could still be born. One day, Ston began to grow at an astonishing rate and declared himself to be the earth spirit of Highland, sent to aid Gunter and help him build a new kingdom. His mastery over time and spirit magic was unlike anything Gunter had ever seen. It was thanks to Ston's power that the kingdom of Highland had risen so swiftly. Yet such power came with a cost. Each time Ston used his ability, his body suffered a tremendous backlash, halting his growth entirely. 10 years had passed and he still bore the form of a child, frozen in time itself. But now Gunter, overwhelmed by his emotions over Maria, lashed out at Ston without realizing it. Regaining his composure, he muttered, Ston, I'm sorry that I shouldn't have taken it out on you. Ston's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. It's all right, Gunter. You have something to ask of me, don't you? Gunter paused, momentarily caught off guard. So even my thoughts can't be hidden from a spirit bound by contract. After a moment of silence he said quietly, Ston, I want you to use your power, to see whether Maria can survive her time in the mines, whether she can find a new reason to live. To his surprise, Ston agreed without hesitation. Understood. If it's to help you, that's enough for me. You'll really help me? Gunter asked in disbelief. Of course, Ston replied with a gentle smile. Just as it was fate that brought you and me together, it was fate that led you to Maria as well. Fate, huh? Gunter murmured, recalling the words spoken 10 years ago by Pope Liberio. It is a path you cannot escape. Leave the Stewart family. Go north, to the land where the gods have prepared your destiny. My destiny is to make Maria happy, he thought, clenching his fists. For that I'll do anything. In a low, steady voice he asked, Ston, what must I do for you? Tell me and I'll do whatever it takes. Meanwhile, in the Highland mines, Maria was sorting gold ore from common stone. What she thought would be a simple task turned out to be maddeningly difficult. The two looked almost identical. As she pondered the differences, the cook shouted from afar, meal time. The workers immediately surged toward the canteen. In the chaotic rush, Maria's feather pen slipped from her pocket and fell to the ground. She glanced at it coldly but said nothing, turning away without a word. When she lined up for food, the cook barked, no work, no meal. That bag of yours is empty. Get back to work first. A violet-haired woman suddenly spoke up in protest. Since when was that a rule? I've never heard of such nonsense. Maria turned to look and realized the speaker's features were delicate, but the voice unmistakably male. Hey cat, got your tongue. Explain yourself, he pressed, leaving the cook stammering. Then a sharp voice cut in, mind your own business, freak. Eat your food. Another joined, yeah, we're sick of that filthy face of yours. The violet-haired youth scoffed, smirking. Oh please, you lot are dirtier than me and I'm the one who shines around here. The section leader, Laura, stepped forward with a sneer. The rules here are my rules. Don't like them. Get out. Her eyes burned with hostility as she glared at Maria. Hey monster queen, the violet-haired boy snapped back. You do realize everyone's equal here, right? I'll go tell the adjutant myself. Before he could finish, someone shoved him hard to the ground. Idiot! Who'd believe a pervert like you? Laughter erupted all around as he glared back furiously. Laura smirked and added coldly, oh, and in case you forgot, food's rationed by head count. If you two can't follow the rules, good luck finding another place to eat. Elotic. You too, Maria. With that, she turned and left with her crew. The violet-haired boy quickly bent down to grab a piece of bread from the floor. But before he could take a bite, Laura's gang spotted him. Thieving freak. Still daring to steal? He hissed quietly to Maria. I didn't finish my quota either. Then grabbing her hand, he bolted toward the exit. Laura stood rooted in place, her expression dark and venomous, eyes fixed coldly on their fleeing silhouettes. Night fell and Maria and the violet-haired man were thrown out of the dormitory. With nowhere to go, the two stood in the cold, shivering under the dark sky. Are you kidding me? The violet-haired lady exclaimed. Being bullied all day wasn't enough. They expect us to sleep outside. We'll freeze to death. Rosa's lackey sneered. Didn't finish your quota and still dared to steal food. Serves you right, pervert. Pervert, pervert. Do I look like I've harmed you in any way? The violet-haired man snapped. Oh please, another spat. You're not even a real woman, yet you live and eat with us. Disgusting. The violet-haired youth clenched his teeth, trembling with anger. You know nothing. Rosa stepped forward, her voice cold as ice. Maria, Elotic, no one here will open their doors for you again. Behave yourselves and don't try anything stupid. With that, she turned and left, leaving the two of them alone in the freezing night. Maria wiped the tears from the boy's face with a gentle pat. Then she led him toward a nearby cave hidden by the rocks. His eyes lit up in surprise as he looked around. Wow, this is amazing, he said, his tone brightening. I've been here 2 months and never found this place. If we get kicked out again, let's just stay here. What do you say? When Maria didn't respond, he asked quietly, You really can't speak, can you? Maria nodded slightly. Elotic lowered his head, guilt heavy in his voice. When you first arrived, I knew you were different. That I thought you were some noble lady who'd been sent here by mistake. I figured someone important would come take you away soon. So yeah, I got close to you on purpose, hoping you'd help me get out of this life. I'm really sorry. Maria tilted her head, eyes full of quiet curiosity. Why are you apologizing? Elotic gave a bitter laugh. Because you're the first person who's ever helped me without asking for something in return. Kind of pathetic, huh? I didn't want to become like the others, but I still approached you with selfish motives. Yet you never judged me. You looked at me without disgust, without malice, without desire. He smiled softly. Let's start over. My name's Elotic. You're short. Maria, will you be my friend? Not the kind bound by debts or favors, but a real friend. One who truly cares. Meanwhile, back in the royal palace, the woman who had betrayed the empress she once called sister had finally become the emperor's mistress. But her ambition burned far beyond that. What she truly craved was the throne of the empress. The power and reverence that came with it, something her birth should never have allowed her to touch. To claim it, she needed legitimacy, and in her hands she held the perfect bargaining chip. That evening, she summoned Henry to her chambers. He arrived with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, irritation thinly veiled beneath. To him, this low-born woman had grown far too presumptuous. For someone of her blood, bearing his child was already an honor beyond measure. Henry sighed impatiently. Speak quickly. I'm busy. Nancy met his gaze and said firmly, Your Majesty, I want to be empress. Henry's smile vanished instantly. He slammed a hand on the table. Nancy Ackman, a slave-born wench not even worthy of being called commoner. How dare you speak such nonsense? Nancy spoke calmly. If I've angered you, I apologize. But please hear me out. The bond between the Highland king and the deposed empress runs far deeper than you think. He lent you 10 million gold without a single guarantee. Don't you find that strange? He's no fool. And the day he came to collect his debt just happened to be the very day the empress fell from grace. Do you really believe that was a coincidence? The empress should always stand by your majesty's side, and if you wish to protect what benefits you most, I can help you. You won't have to repay that 10 million gold. Henry's fury faded at once, replaced by a calculating smile. Fine, he said coldly. Let's hear your plan in detail. Meanwhile, Maria and Illo found temporary shelter in a cave. Moments later, the sky broke open with rain and the temperature plunged sharply. When they were driven out of the dormitory, they had brought nothing to keep warm. Now they shivered uncontrollably in the icy cave. As Maria frowned in thought, a shadow appeared at the entrance. A man standing there, silent. Her thoughts raced. Is this his territory? Or has he been following me? She turned, intending to wake you. But before she could move, a hand seized her wrist tightly. The man's low voice rumbled, Don't wake him. Moments later, they were led to a small wooden hut hidden deep within the mine. Maria hadn't imagined such a place could exist in this desolate region. The boy said quietly, You'll get sick sleeping out there in this weather. Stay here for the night. I'm a Highland guard, he added. I still have rounds to make, but you're safe here. Maria's wary eyes narrowed. Really? She whispered. Even if he truly was a Highland soldier, he had no obligation to help laborers like them. If anything, he should have seen them as a nuisance. And yet he looked no older than 16. Do Highland warriors really start this young? As she pondered, a shadow suddenly loomed over her. The boy had approached without a sound. Maria's heart jolted. When did he get so close? She realized she shouldn't have relaxed her guard just because he looked young. The next second, a cloak gently fell over Maria's shoulders. The boy's voice carried a quiet warmth. Put it on. You'll be warmer this way. With that, he turned and disappeared beyond the door. That sudden kindness made Maria's cheeks flush. Just who was this boy really? The next day, Maria and Illo resumed their work sorting stones. Illo worked deftly, teaching Maria the tricks as he went. Not far away, Rosa's group spotted them alive and well. Shock and disbelief flashed across their faces. Did they really stay in the king's quarters? Shut up. Are you insane? Rosa snapped, cutting off the bickering. Her tone turned cold. Get ready. There's no need to hold back anymore. Meanwhile, Maria and Illo remained unaware of the storm about to break, focusing intently on their tasks. A laborer spat on Illo's head, smirking with open contempt. Ugh, disgusting freak. Don't stain the gold with your filth. A flicker of fury flashed through Illo's eyes, but he quickly forced it down. He turned as if nothing had happened and kept talking to Maria. Maria quietly took his hand. Though she couldn't speak, her touch conveyed silent comfort. I'm fine, Illo said softly. Whether I wear women's clothes or anything else, It doesn't matter no matter what I look like, my soul doesn't change, I'll always be me. Maria looked at him, her heart trembling. How could someone shine this brightly? It felt as though her heart might melt. That day Rosa and her cronies once again sabotaged their work, leaving them short of quota. Rage flared in Elo's chest. They'll face divine punishment before the day is over, he hissed. Then he smiled at Maria. You stay here and keep watch that if anything goes wrong, throw a stone to signal me. Maria nodded obediently. Elo crept quietly toward the food storage. Just as success seemed within reach, two of Rosa's lackeys appeared behind him. In an instant a kick slammed into his back, knocking him to the ground. Got you, thief. Elo stared up in shock. That I just saw them working in the distance. How are they here already? And where's Maria? One grabbed his collar. Elo struggled and shouted, if you accuse me of stealing, I'll expose every filthy thing you've done. The lackey sneered. Got any proof? The words hit harder than a punch. Elo froze. Everyone here saw it. You stole the bread, and apart from a few bruises you're perfectly fine. Who do you think they'll believe? I really am a fool, Elo thought bitterly. Walked right into their trap. Please, Maria, get away before they hurt you too. The lackeys continued to hurl insults and kick at him. Suddenly a hand reached out from the side. The lackey turned, and met Maria's eyes, cold enough to freeze blood. At that moment, a frantic officer burst into the command room. Your Majesty, Lady Maria has started a fight with the female workers. What? Gunther shot up from his seat. Will she be killed by them? Without another word, he donned his gear and stormed out, striding swiftly toward the scene. Meanwhile, Maria and Elo were surrounded, taking relentless blows as shouts echoed around them. You filthy thieves. Oh right, Rosa sneered. There's that half-man freak too. How about we strip that pervert while we're at it? The words pierced Maria's mind like a needle. Though her body was battered, she lunged forward and seized the woman's wrist. Her eyes burned with a fury so violent it bordered on madness. The lackey flinched at that gaze, retreating in fear behind Rosa. Rosa whispered darkly, so, you're just like them after all. Before coming here she'd been treated like garbage by the nobles. Trampled, humiliated, begging for mercy that never came. That's why I'll never forgive you. This time I'll take my revenge. Enough. A sharp, commanding voice cut through the chaos. Gunther had arrived with his guards. His cold gaze swept over the scene, landing on the faintly breathing Maria. Who's in charge of Sector F? Find Rosa and make her explain everything. Rosa froze, panic flashing in her eyes. The king himself had come. Something that had never happened before. Could the rumors be true? Was that woman really his? It was them, she cried. They stole bread, they broke my rules. We were just punishing them, rules are rules. Is that so? Gunther's voice dropped to a chilling calm. Oh, Teak and Maria from Sector F. You'll be punished for breaking order and causing unrest. Your Majesty. Officer Shar hurried forward, but Gunther ignored her. His gaze stayed on Maria. Tie them to the trees, he ordered coldly. No food, no water, until sunrise. That night they hung from the trees, exhausted. Maria turned her head toward Elo, who had somehow fallen asleep. He's incredible, she thought weakly. Compared to him I'm so insignificant. A former queen now punished for stealing bread. How ridiculous. She realized for the first time how blind she had been. Never thinking about where gold came from or what suffering it cost, she felt ashamed of her own ignorance. Suddenly, footsteps rustled in the darkness. Maria looked up sharply. Standing there was the same boy from last night. The boy said nothing. He simply held out a flask of water to Maria. Maria hesitated, then turned her head sharply away in refusal. You have to drink, ma'am, he urged. You haven't eaten or drunk anything since yesterday, right? Maria stared straight at him. Why is he helping me? What does he want from me? She had nothing left to give. If he desired my body, he could have done it last night, she thought. Can I really trust him? What if this is one of Gunther's traps? She knew well the king wanted to keep her under his thumb. The boy offered the water again. Anger flared in Maria's chest. I said no. Why are you still? Please, he interrupted softly, his tone full of genuine plea. Please just drink, Maria. She froze. How does he know my name? And his face, flushed red to the ears. Could this be an act? Her guard loosened a little. She lowered her head, slowly leaning forward. Will you drink? He asked, hopeful, bringing the flask to her lips. When Maria finished, she gestured for him to come closer. Thinking she wanted more, he leaned in, only to realize how little space now separated them. Thank you, Maria mouthed silently, her lips shaping the words. The boy froze, staring at her, captivated. Then his face turned crimson and his heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. Maria blinked, unsure if she had done something wrong. Did I get too close? Maybe that made him uncomfortable, she thought. The boy turned abruptly, flustered. I should go, that I can't leave my post for long. See you next time. And with that he hurried away into the dark. Maria watched the boy's back with a faint sense of confusion, as if bewitched by some fairy's spell. Why does this feel so familiar? She couldn't shake the feeling she had seen that figure long ago. The boy stepped into the forest, his expression shifting. Come out, he said calmly. The nearby bushes rustled, and out popped Officer Sashar and the elf Stan. Sashar grinned mischievously. What was that just now, Your Majesty? The boy, who was in truth the Highland king in disguise, cleared his throat awkwardly. Sashar, what are you doing here, and why did you bring Stan? Don't play dumb, Sashar replied. I heard you were using Lord Stan's power for something mysterious, so I followed to take a look. But turning into a kid just to flirt with a lady? Really? Gunther's face turned crimson. At flirting? Don't talk nonsense, you fool. Sorry. Sashar said, trying not to laugh. Well, to be fair, our king hasn't been with a woman in 25 years, Sashar continued mercilessly. So maybe he wasn't seducing her. It was the lady who seduced him. Gunther looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. If you really need help with women, just ask me, Sashar kept rambling. I can explain everything from experience. Gunther groaned, scooping Stan into his arms. Forget it, that I'm not taking advice from a playboy like you. Playboy? Sashar protested. Life's short. You've got to enjoy it in full color. Stan blinked curiously. Wow. That sounds amazing, right, Gunther? Gunther sighed. Stan, don't listen to his nonsense. Sashar suddenly turned serious. By the way, Your Majesty, Lady Maria, she didn't react at all, did she? Gunther paused, his expression darkening. Right now, you look just like you did 10 years ago, Sashar ventured cautiously. You thought maybe appearing that way might help her remember? Recreating that moment could trigger something, he added. It might be risky, but if we're careful. Sashar. Gunther's tone dropped, cold and heavy. The officer stiffened instantly, bowing low. My apologies, Your Majesty, that I spoke out of turn. Gunther sighed. Our priority is to wake Maria's heart. I only used Stan's power and changed like this to help her. Maria is half dead inside right now. Sashar blurted out in worry. Put your own urges aside for later, that I'm worried. What if Lady Maria never understands your feelings? What if she never recovers her memory? Gunther cut him off with a bitter laugh. You worry too much. Since 10 years ago, I no longer care about that kind of thing. Nothing, no person and no thing, will change Maria's essence to at most. It will leave regret. Sashar stared in disbelief. Gunther picked up Stan and moved on. Hurry up, Sashar. Stop dawdling. Dawn is coming. Sashar looked up, helpless. Devoting yourself entirely to one person. This has nothing to do with me. He hurried to catch up. Wait, are you really leaving me behind? At the mine, everyone toiled. Maria's stomach growled. She felt embarrassed. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Could she finally get a real meal today? Lo quietly called to her. I'll work over there for a bit. That I think the pile on the right has more gold. You start here, when I come back we'll swap bags, okay? Wait, there's no need to, Maria began, but waved and went off. She watched his retreating back. That he's hungry too, that he's just pretending he's not. Suddenly she stared at a spot in the mine. Am I imagining things? There was a small child who was pointing. Following his finger, she saw Io concentrating on sorting ore. Unnoticed, one of Rosa's lackeys slipped and stole the gold he had picked out. They snickered behind him. Ro sensed something and grabbed the sack. What are you doing? That's my gold. You already have enough. Why steal from me? The lackey held tight and sneered. Do you need a reason? It's gold. That it's better in our hands than wasted on some pervert like you. Maria clenched her fists, watching the scene. This was beyond cruel. hadn't had a proper meal in days. That he had no strength to fight back. Why were they bullying him like this? The crowd egged them on, shouting for violence. Hit them. Teach them a lesson. Maria watched the scene in front of her, pain knotting in her chest. Were they really making the right call? This was wrong, she had to stop it now. Doubt gnawed at her. What could she do if she stepped in? She'd lost wealth and status and even the strength to persuade others. What could she possibly do now? As she hesitated, a gust of wind tossed a thin branch to her feet. Maybe that could be used. Bo, exhausted, lay toppled on the ground while Rosa planted her boot on him, panting and snarling. You pervert, today you'll feel real pain. Bo struggled to get up but had no strength. Someone jeered that the mute woman he protected had no backing. Nobody would stop them. Suddenly a voice cut through. Maria stood there holding the branch. Rosa sneered. You expect to beat me with that stick? Rosa's lackeys moved to intervene but she waved them off. No, don't step in. This will be fun. Calmly, Maria laid down a challenge. I'll fight you empty-handed, that if you beat me, stop tormenting him and me, deal? Rosa laughed but Maria nodded. She accepted. The two squared off and the crowd erupted. Fight! Fight! I bet on Rosa. Rosa smirked and snarled that Maria hadn't eaten in days. She'd be too weak. This was already decided in Rosa's mind. Rosa launched a heavy punch straight at Maria. Maria nimbly dodged and, in one motion, struck Rosa on the head with the branch. Rosa grit her teeth and turned, fury blazing in her eyes. Maria watched Rosa carefully. Her attacks were wild, powered by brute strength, flashy but full of openings, raising her branch like a blade. Maria thought, I can win this. That woman, Maria, right? She's incredible, someone in the crowd gasped. How are her movements so clean? That must be noble swordsmanship. Bo smiled proudly, his eyes shining with relief. Rosa's two lackeys shouted encouragement. Rosa snarled through gritted teeth. Like hell I'm losing. And besides, the rules aren't over yet. The fight only ends when one side surrenders. She spat, suddenly scooping up sand and flinging it into Maria's eyes. Taking advantage of the opening, she lunged forward and kicked Maria hard to the ground. She threw sand in her eyes, the onlookers cried. That's cheating. Too low even for her. Moments later, Sasha arrived with guards. By order of His Majesty, Rosa and her gang, tie them to the posts for stealing gold. As for Maria, she'll be imprisoned for inciting unrest. The king commands that you reflect on your sins in the darkness of the cell. Maria said nothing, resting her head quietly on her knees against the cold stone wall. Reflect. Reflect on what? She thought bitterly. For stepping in while everyone watched in silence. For standing up to Rosa? I did nothing wrong, she thought, fury tightening her chest. Suddenly, a strange awareness struck her. When did I start feeling this real again? This alive? She slowly placed a hand over her heart, feeling it beat firmly beneath her palm. Meanwhile at the palace, Henry stared at his palm. Though his glove hid the words written with the quill, the fury beneath the surface burned just the same. The click of high heels approached and the former empress took her seat, asking softly, Your Majesty, are you unwell? Henry sneered, What could be wrong? I'm simply torn over who to crown empress, Lauren or Nancy? The former empress scoffed, Why hesitate? Of course choose Lauren. She bore an imperial air. Henry probed, What if someone offered to help, say wipe our debt to Highland clean? Would you accept? The former empress's eyes lit up. If it clears that debt, of course we should accept help. But why bring this up now? Nancy answered calmly, Pope Liberio secretly left Maria a personal estate that if we seize the deed that transfers it, it can be made yours. The former empress bristled. Crown her empress? A low-born peasant daring to dream of such a thing. She slammed the table down. Don't be fooled, the child couldn't possibly hold that power. Henry sipped his tea, admitting, I was skeptical until Nancy told me. He set the cup down. What else did she say? He asked. Nancy continued, Concerning the King of Highland, he's mad for Maria. You saw how he treated her mother, that he insisted on taking Maria as a hostage. Hearing that, Henry's anger flared. Now it makes sense. Maria's ties to that low-born man, being deceived for 10 years. My blood boils. Yet he let reason take over. This could work to our advantage. Highland never intended to return her anyway, right? Once I have the deed transferring Maria's estate to me, he concluded, I'll sell her to the King of Highland for 10 million gold. Solve our two problems at once.